last week, John, the buzz that took place on Friday was there were a couple of reports on Jordan Addison, the wide receiver, the transfer in the portal from Pittsburgh. And the reports were starting off with Pete Thamel of ESPN, and then other people picked it up. Addison is expected to visit Tuscaloosa. He's expected to make an official visit to the Crimson Tide at some point. Now, when will the official visit come? I don't know as of right now, but according to reports, he is expected to make an official visit to Tuscaloosa to the Crimson Tide at some point. Now, the communication has been mutual on both sides. Addison has been talking with Alabama. Alabama has been talking with Addison, so the communication is mutual. Now, the rumor is USC is the expected place for him to go with all the NIL opportunities over there in Southern California. However, he is expected to visit the Crimson Tide at some point. And what makes this interesting is, and we saw this with Tyler Steen, right, offensive lineman from Vanderbilt. He visited several schools, but he ended up coming to Alabama, fell in love with the program, fell in love with the plays. People showed him love. What happens? The young man ends up committing to the Crimson Tide as his transfer destination on social media. The same thing with Tyler Harrell. He hops in the portal on April 12th, the dynamic speed receiver from Louisville. He comes to Alabama on A-Day. He's in the crowd. He gets the love from the fans. He enjoys his visit, fell in love with the place. What happened the very following Friday, Tyler Harrell gives that yes to Alabama, commits via social media. Does the same thing happen to Jordan Addison? And it could. We'll see. But he's expected to take that visit here to the Crimson Tide. Does Nick Saban bring him in? Do the Crimson Tide, or does Alabama land another marquee wide receiver from the portal? Because if it does, you can pretty much start the beginning coronation of, is this back-to-back Heismans for Bryce Young? If you get Jordan Addison, I feel bad, horrible, for every defensive coordinator and defensive back, because who are you going to cover? Who are you going to commit a corner and a safety to over the top if Alabama lands Jordan Addison? Because you got to think, defensive coordinators, their vibe is, okay, who do we think is going to be the number one receiver for Alabama? Do we think it's going to be Burton? Do we think it's going to be Harrell? If they get Addison, do we think it's going to be Addison? And whoever they think it's going to be, they're going to align a corner and a safety to that guy, which means the other two transfers are going to be running scot-free. And not just them, you still look at a Christian Leary. You still look at a Trayshawn Holden. You still look at a Ja'Cory Brooks. You still look at a JoJo Earl. You still look at an Aaron Anderson, a Kendrick Law, possibly an Isaiah Bond. And these are just receivers. I haven't even mentioned, the tight end like Cameron Latu, Amari Black. If Miles Kitselman develops into a marquee pass-catching threat. And this is not even me even bringing up the running backs catching the ball out of the backfield. So if Alabama gets Jordan Addison, the reigning Biletnikoff Award winner this past season, 100 catches, 1,593 yards, 18 total touchdowns, 17 touchdown catches. If Alabama lands him, who are you going to cover if you're a defensive back? How are you going to scheme your defense if you're a defensive coordinator? And then you might as well just get ready to go. For the first time since Archie Griffin, Ohio State, 1974 and 1975, we got a back-to-back repeating Heisman Trophy winner in Bryce Young. Because if you get Jordan Addison, You get Jordan Addison, a national championship would basically come down to two things for Alabama if you get Addison. It would come down to, number one, the consistent play of the offensive line, and then the consistent positive play of the offensive line, and then number two, the creativity of Bill O'Brien as a play caller. Those two things. You get those two things, you can try to go and just book Bama's ticket to L.A. for a national championship if it ends up landing Jordan Addison. I mean, even if it doesn't get him, you still got weapons across the board at wide receiver, even if you don't get him. I'm just saying if Alabama is able to pick this young man up, it's what are you going to do if you're a DC? I mean, what are you going to do if you're a defensive back? I mean, that's just unfair. That's just unfair if Saban's able to land this young man.